How you doing, everybody? My name's Jason Patrick, contributor at zeninthecar.com, and I guess we're talking about resistance. And you know, peaceful resistance looks like this. No thank you. No thank you. No thank you. And you know, if you're training, which I train, and I can do what I need to do, but train yourself to say no thank you. There's a lot of things that have happened in this country, you know, over the last year, and you know, peaceful resistance is just no thank you. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Clive and Bundy. And people say, oh, that was violent and it'd be a bloodbath, and I kind of giggle whenever I listen to the police officers, because basically you had a large group of people that said no thank you. No government here, please. We're minding our own business. We prefer if you mind yours. No one's being harmed, and it's beneficial use. Only some people don't listen to no thank you. So you have the First Amendment, your right to speak and say no thank you, and you have your right to the Second Amendment, which at the Bundy Ranch looked like people carrying it so that you would hear the no thank you more clearly. And that's what I think peaceful protest is. You don't have to get loud and outrageous, and you just say no thank you. And when you're alone, trust me, no thank you doesn't usually work out too well for you. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't say it. You know, resist proud and resist often. No thank you is peaceful resistance. And the more often you say it, the better off we'll be. So, and a friend of mine said, Ammon Bundy said, you have rights, but you only have them if you do these three things. Number one, you claim them. Number two, you beneficially use them. And number three, you protect them. So you're a free individual, which means you might have to say no thank you to some tyrants that want to control you. Anyways, this is Jason Patrick with zeninthecar.com. Peace.
Finally back on my air again, because he's been doing, seems like, everybody else's show, including Kim's show a bunch of times, Daniel Lewis Crumpton. So we're going to have a different sort of conversation tonight. Of course, he is the author of Then Came the Flood, and also that other book, the poetry thing, which I always screw up the name of, so I'll wait until Daniel gets on to tell you about that. And of course, he's also one of the main men over at zeninthecar.com. And that's an interesting website, not exactly typical at all, just like Daniel is not typical either. So we're going to wind up discussing all sorts of things, especially this recent article that he wrote based on the conversation that I had, I don't know, was it last week? I think it was last week. The conversation that myself and Kim both had on the Jaded Show with a UCY listener named Cracker, which spawned an article called They're All Gonna Shoot at You, I think. And, well, we'll see where that goes. I'll let Daniel tell the story exactly, because it seems weird. A lot of odd discussions are starting to erupt on social media over certain things that are being said, etc. So, again, you know, social norms and challenging them and spirituality are also jags that I get into now and then. And this is why it's good to have a guy on like Daniel Lewis Crumpton, who is not only an activist, but also an interesting, introspective, and, well, just a serious, not only introspective, but let me get this straight. I mean, really, he's like, he's got a philosophy which comes from a wholly different place than where my philosophies come from, but somehow or other we seem to intertwine pretty well, and we seem to make sense with each other, which is why one of these nights I'm actually just going to do a spoken word kind of thing, like from an artistic point of view, and I think I'm going to have Daniel do it with me, because 2 hours of me rambling is more than anybody can handle. Anyway, it is in light of the civil unrest in Baltimore. It is in light of the concepts of nonviolence versus preparation versus those who believe that somehow or other their particular personal arsenals are going to be the saviors of themselves and the rest of us all, especially, in light of the great catastrophe about to happen in this world, etc., etc. This is where this philosophical logjam begins. I'm not into fear porn. I'm not into screaming that you need to be able to survive the great cataclysm which is about to land on this planet. The great cataclysm is not about to land. It has already landed. It is being incrementally done, and we are watching the infection grow on the human species as we speak. We're just aware of it. And it was sort of a slow growing sort of malignancy that has been there for quite a long time. I like to go back, 50 years or so, because that's where I've spent my time studying. But the fact is that this is a long time coming, and it's not just from one particular group, from one particular piece of what I like to think of as the great triad of the powers in this world, and all of that. It is actually something that has not been codified properly. I don't think so in alternative media. Certainly, the mainstream completely ignores it, just like they want to tell us that everything is actually a racial incident, everything is all about race, and so on and so forth. And let's completely ignore the fact that that the actual posture of our local police forces has changed. The ideas behind why our military is pushed into service has changed. The fact is that the intelligence community has absolutely erupted into insanity over the past half century or so. With ease, you can count it from there. But, hey, I digress, don't I? So very shortly, Daniel Lewis Crumpton will join me. He's just not on the line just yet. But let me see. We're just about at that point where I think he'll be jumping in. When he does, excuse me, when he does, I think something rather fascinating is going to ensue. Again, I don't like to script any of this stuff. And initially, when I was talking to Daniel, I did speak to him off the air last night briefly, just to kind of make sure that he was going to be available because, he's been doing all kinds of different shows. He was on with Kira Young, who was a previous guest on this show. Today, I think it was a pre-record. It might have just finished playing when I was going to air, actually. He was on with Dylan Wade at some point today, doing a live thing, and you guys have heard Dylan on here. He was absolutely also, planning to, if he's got any energy left, probably bleed right into the Jaded discussion tonight. So, a guy who wants to do 4 radio shows in a day because he is so moved to keep things up, I do appreciate it. The other thing, of course, is that at zeninthecar.com, and of course it's Zen in the Car TV on YouTube and all this other stuff. You've extracted a lot of things from the Jaded show, which is, Kim's show. And you made a lot of appearances on there, and some of it is some of the most hysterical stuff. I mean, literally speaking, I privately sit there and listen to it just to crack up because it's hysterical. And I even brought some of that stuff onto other radio shows when they said, we need something lighthearted. This is all doom and gloom. And I said, well, you know what? I got a story about a walrus. Well, but the thing is, you're extremely diverse, but the reason why you're on tonight and the reason why it's necessary to have you on my show finally, again, is because, well, there was kind of an odd situation that broke out on last week's Jaded, right?
Yeah, man, I missed one show and you guys get into all kinds of trouble.
Well, what happened is I was just in this stupid, aloof sort of mood because I'm sitting there talking to Dylan Wade, who I brought up earlier. Of course, you were on a show a little while ago. And I'm talking to him about the ridiculousness that goes on in his history class, which I find extremely fascinating. I don't know. Nobody's complained about it yet, but I think it's hysterical, right? Anyway, I have no idea why the word lithium is being dropped into the chat room over and over again, but okay. No problem, unless I'm just seeing repeats. Maybe I need some. That's cool. Maybe there's lithium in the water and it's mellowing me out. That means these shows are going to suck. Okay. Anyway, back to it. See, I can't even stay on track, man, tonight, I'm telling you. Back to it, though. The whole thing was you heard this phone call that went on where Cracker joined in the midst of me doing this deconstruction of Dylan's history class.
Mm-hmm.
Cracker called in and said, I want to discuss something different. And so we, of course, on that show always go, sure, why not? Let's go. Totally took it into another direction. You took a listen to that because you do actually listen to my shows and Kim's show,
Mm-hmm.
even when you're not on them.
Right.
So you listened to that and you heard me sort of struggle with what was going on there and kind of give up. And, you know, I bet you most people didn't really catch that. But, you know, they probably just thought, well, you know, Cracker just, you know, beat him down and won the intellectual argument. But you heard me give up. You know, so because you do know me. But the thing is, also, if you're sort of, you know, in tune with other people and you sort of pay attention to what's going on, you can tell when somebody who's a host or a co-host gives up. You know,
You're worn out.
Yeah, I was definitely worn out. Kim didn't know what to do, and Cracker just steamrolled through, and that resulted in you writing an article.
Right.
So I wonder if you want to pick up the story from there.
Yeah, sure. First, though, you mentioned earlier I've been doing all these shows today. Good Lord, and it's humbling. I do want to say that it's very, very humbling because I'm a guy that is just trying to carry a message of, you know, all of us have been through the whole Alex Jones phase. We've all been through the 9/11 phase. We've been through the police state phase. You know, we've done our storable foods. We did the whole ammo thing, and I'm just of a different philosophy. You know, I'm not really of the persuasion that of a doomsday prophet. I just,
Right.
you know, I believe in the collective consciousness, the opinion that we're at a precipice in human evolution. And we have a choice as a civilization on where we're going to head from this point on, from a conscious level and a physical level, which is, are we going to go down this road of negativity and being doomsday prophets, and the sky is falling and the police state's going to win, and, you know, all these horrible things? Are we going to, is that what we really want to inject into the collective consciousness? Because if we keep doing it and we keep doing it with intensity, then you're guaranteed to have that. Now, that's not really the kind of future that I want to see, and I don't think that it's written in stone. You know, I'm of the opinion that if you can get, just like with the 100th monkey syndrome, if you can get 10% of the people to believe that there is a way out of this, a peaceful way out of this, then it's going to start triggering minds, just like, you know, the revolution of 1776, brush fires in the minds of men. You know, so that's the opinion that I take. And you know, when you had that caller call in on Jaded, you know, the other night, I was so exhausted, and I was going to call in, you know, and rap with you guys, but I was out I started my garden and all that, and was being with nature. I was so exhausted, I just had to listen. And when the caller called in, you know, I could tell by the time that he got done with you guys, he had worn you down. You know, he had worn you down. And it was disheartening for me because, you know, whenever me and you and Kim talk about things, we always try to leave it with a positive and upbeat, you know, on a positive and upbeat note, you know, to inspire other people to get up and do something. And this was just this galvanizing tirade of we're all doomed. You know what I mean? I was after I listened to you guys, I said, you know, I really want to address it, and it wasn't really, you know, necessarily me targeting, you know, your caller, because I don't know the guy, you know, but I hear people like that particular caller all the time on other shows, but I just chose to use that particular caller as an example because it was fresh in my mind, and I wrote an article called "They're All Going to Shoot at You," right?
Right.
Which, you know, it's kind of a mockery of Carrie. You know, they're all going to laugh at you.
See,
So,
and I countered to you, you know, just in case you weren't really, you know, thinking of Carrie. If you remember Adam Sandler,
Yeah.
the thing where he did kind of the same deal. They're all going to laugh at you,
yeah,
and it kind of works both ways, doesn't it?
yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead.
All right. So anyway, I'll go ahead and read it for your audience here. all going to laugh at you. Daniel Lewis Crumpton here, wishing to deliver a bit of my First Amendment to all of you.
Well, they're all going to shoot at you.
They're all going to shoot at you, yeah.
You said they're all going to laugh at you.
Oh, my bad. Sorry.
We'll start again, because it's live. We got to take two. All right.
Recently, I was listening to Jaded with Kim O'Chelly on UCY.tv, a radio show I'm a frequent guest of myself, though not on this particular night. A listener by the name of Cracker called in to express his concerns regarding the recent events in Baltimore in the aftermath of the alleged murder of Freddie Gray while in police custody. Cracker began his call by pointing out the rap sheets of police homicide victims and how these people were, quote, black thugs. After host Kim O'Chelly expressed her view that a person's rap sheet doesn't warrant an instant death sentence, the caller made the Indiana Jones logical leap of faith by switching gears to the idea that all of this was a distraction from the real issue of a police state. Cracker points out, with no attachment to the details of the Baltimore issue, his contempt for the fact when people complain at police departments, they are ignored. Now, before I get into the meat of this piece, I do have to address the opening premise of the caller's concerns. I don't do the whole racism thing because, quite honestly, I think it's just a waste of time, due to the fact that I personally don't believe in races, rather I believe in cultures. That being said, I don't really see the need to distinguish a, quote, black thug over a thug at all, but Cracker is more than entitled to make those distinctions for himself. Secondly, I don't see how the caller could possibly believe that people murdered while in police custody without due process of law could be a distraction from the issue of a growing police state in this country and dismiss those murders due to rap sheets generated by the police. Anyone who is aware of the police state rising knows full well that one of their many tactics is to upcharge those they arrest with anything and everything they can think of. I have personally spoken to many police officers who gloat about upcharging all the time, with the justification that they know the suspect lawyers will plead down anyway, so they might as well throw as much mud against the wall as they can to see what sticks. However, Mr. Cracker has no problem whatsoever dismissing the issue of Freddie Gray based on how many statutes and act violations the police could pin on the guy, which may or may not be true. As I said before, the Freddie Gray thing will not be the meat of this article, but I had to premise the logical nosedive this particular caller began with to prepare you for what is to come. For the next hour and some change, Mr. Cracker gives Alex Jones a run for his money as he nearly swallows his phone and, with a loud, guttural, desperately pessimistic voice, essentially declares that all is lost, after establishing that he will completely talk over any opposing views expressed by the host and co-host, because after all, if you can talk the loudest, that means you must be right. He uses the ham-fisted, quote, rabbit trail technique when asked direct questions. You know how it works. You ask a direct question, and the person who has absolutely no answer replies with a 20-minute story that has no connection to the question. So by the time you are done, you'll have completely forgotten what you asked to begin with. Mr. Cracker then goes on, after popping his intellectual ego Viagra, to scream to the audience that A, there is a police state coming, and B, nothing can be done about it, hence completely demoralizing anyone who happens to think otherwise, thereby immobilizing them by means of fear from attempting to do anything about it. Now, ain't that a great prize at the bottom of the box of Cracker Jacks? The overzealous caller goes on to outline things that I think we can all agree with, such as a fiat currency, globalization, the police state, and the collapse of everything as we know it. These are concepts that we are all well aware of and concerned about, myself included. However, where Cracker veers off the course I've set myself upon is at the point where he does a Joker-like hair pull and rips through all the avenues of pushing this thing back. Take tyrants to court? Nope, not going to work. Protest? No chance. Educate the masses? Good luck there. Vote for liberty candidates? Why vote? Expose the corruption? I'd rather stock up on ammo. Will it work on the federal level? Of course not. How about the local level? Unicorns and Skittles, fella. This guy's a hardliner and makes absolutely sure that by the time he's done ingesting his phone with his predictions of all-out nuclear annihilation of the human species, the listener is left with the impression that there is no point engaging in anything because he has attempted to shoot down any and all solutions many of us advocate. Cracker points to the mythical date of when the, quote, shit hits the fan, as they say, when it will be kill or be killed. Aside from the fact that no one has ever been able to define for me exactly what the shit hitting the fan is, they typically say it will be when the dollar collapses. I find this an odd indicator of total enslavement by a tyrannical, shadowy elite, seeing as how the same people of this sort of mindset will clearly tell you that the establishment of the current dollar was the beginning of total enslavement by a tyrannical, shadowy elite. So let me get this straight. The shadowy elite designed the fiat system of the dollar by establishing the Federal Reserve in 1913, putting us all in shackles of never-ending debt. But if this shackle of the dollar collapses, that is when the proverbial shit will hit the fan. Is Cracker suggesting that the only thing postponing enslavement is enslavement? Your guess is as good as mine. And quite frankly, this particular caller lost me when he stated that Muslims get a free pass in this country because they're willing to kill people. The first thing I would like to know is what Muslims are getting a free pass at? Full price at the local barbecue joint buffet? Secondly, aren't all those drones flying over Muslim countries and smart bombs blowing Muslim kids to bits sent courtesy of the world's finest Christian nation? The one thing this caller was absolutely sure of is that this thing will never be settled peacefully, and I'm sure he would be more than happy for you to subscribe to that viewpoint as well. That's right. He is going to go down in a Clint Eastwood blaze of glory, complete with squinty-eyed and half-chewed cigars. He holds his shotgun up at a legion of Linco Bearcats as the words, "Go ahead, punk, make my, oh God, I've been tased, bitten in the face by a rather large dog, riddled with rubber bullets, real bullets, and these nightsticks really hurt while they're thwacking against my dying skull. Maybe I should have thought this whole shooting at the tyrants that wanted me to shoot at them to begin with so they could do this thing to me in the first place through before I came out of my woodshed with this cute little shotgun."
Get up. Get off my lawn.
Listen, old man, you don't want to fuck with me.
Did you hear me? I said get off my lawn now.
Are you fucking crazy? Go back in the house.
Yeah, I blow a hole in your face and then I go in the house. And I sleep like a baby. You can count on that. We used to stack fucks like you 5 feet high in Korea. Use you for sandbags.
See how silly that sounds? The fact of the matter is that people who say they will shoot back will not shoot back, no matter how much they say they will. Because if such people actually would, they would have done it a long, long time ago. My dad always used to tell me, never take a man who talks about bringing a world of ass whooping on you seriously, because he's overcompensating with his mouth what he isn't willing to do with his ass. That goes for bullies and gun barrel licking doomsday prophets waiting for feces to fly from a fan. The caller indicated he was an older gent that was in Vietnam and knew from the age of 16 that this country was turning into a police state, but still made the decision of participating in an unconstitutional institution, the military, and furthering the agenda of a police state by being a pawn in a police action overseas. Thanks, guy. We young whippersnappers really appreciate you passing the buck on down to us, so we're forced to find solutions you were too apathetic to deal with in your day and too pessimistic to even consider as options today. Your country's prodigy is in debt to you, Mr. Cracker. The fact of the matter is that the caller is wrong about this revolution. Yes, it is true that American citizens are armed to the teeth, just as it is true that the police and military are as well. And what a conflict would spell is simply mutually assured destruction. At the end of the day, the best interest of both so-called sides is self-preservation, and that excludes mutually assured destruction. When you rule that out, the only option you are left with is peaceful revolution. What needs to be understood is that revolutions transpire differently with the passing of time, though the purpose of revolution is to essentially reboot something which has degraded. Revolutions are upgrades, and anyone who believes we're ever going back to the good old republic that started in 1776 is sadly mistaken. No, as I always say, and as your eyes see each and every time you visit our site, revolution is evolution. We aren't going to restore the republic. This is true. What we're going to do is walk through these birth pangs fearlessly, and on the other side give birth to something far, far better. People such as Cracker will still be cracking rocks together, waiting for a spark from the Neanderthal age, as people such as myself and you hold up the flaming torch of liberty from the rising of a new species. As for the claim that words are useless in revolution, I would ask people of such persuasion to remember the fact that the sword of Washington would have had no power if not for the pen of Paine. And what more are the rights in our Constitution than mere words? No, words are the most effective weapon in any battle because they have more power than any bullet in that they can blow minds away rather than brains. As Tom York says, what's the point of instruments? Words are a sawed-off shotgun. So, if you're determined to fight in this thing, you best reload. As for me, my pen is my sword and my keyboard is my AR-15.
We're waiting between worlds. Wish you could tell them hold on. We're waiting between worlds. Waiting between worlds that divide to a choice and define a break in the line where all paths intertwine and no roads lead or progress behind. And all signs lead no the way decide. They say all things never truly die, but change in existence and switch design. Like a drain to an ocean in which we're blind, we remain set in motion from worlds combined. So if I had one thought that would last and hold, amass and fold over as the fast it grows, infusing a life like a fabric sewn, plastic vast field once existence flows. I'd say settle down let go.